And then there was Libya, which could argue be a success. Some people say that a distraction or whatnot, but certainly a place where Hillary Clinton played a pivotal role. She travels to France, as you document in your book, and she basically wants to make sure that other people are going to contribute before. It doesn't seem like she's giving hints that the Obama administration is going to act, but she wants to first make sure that other people will act with the United States if there's action. So explain what she's doing in France.
Well, first let me give you the context of that trip, because it was one of the most insane trips that I have been on. Everything was on the move. It felt like the world was ending. You had the earthquake in Japan with the tsunami there and the nuclear crisis. You had a crisis with Pakistan where the CIA contractor Raymond Davis was detained. You had the revolution that was just ending in Egypt. Hosni Mubarak had just stepped down. Tunisia had already happened. The revolution was ongoing, the uprising was ongoing in Libya. Syria was just erupting. And you had a couple of thousand Saudi and Emirati troops marching into Bahrain to try to quell the unrest there. All of this happening at the same time while we're on this flight to Paris, and the U.S. is coming under intense pressure to do something about Libya, where Muammar Gaddafi was threatening to level the city of Benghazi. So that takes you back to one of the first questions that you asked about, it's all fast moving, and how do you make sure that you're not making any mistakes? You don't have the luxury to stop. You just have to handle it all at the same time. And that's just one tiny little window into how dynamic it is to address all those challenges. So Hillary Clinton goes to Paris to try to assess where everybody is on the issue of Libya, because this administration is not going to get involved in any sort of military intervention unilaterally. There is no repeat of that for this administration. And they don't want to be leading the charge and then find out that everybody's standing way back in the back and criticizing them for having gone forward. So they're keeping their cards very close to their chest. And Hillary Clinton is, in essence, kind of, lining up her ducks, or as I say in the book, going through her checklist. What do we need? What does the U.S. need to make the decision to go for intervention? And she goes about very methodically lining all that up. She speaks to the Brits and the French to figure out exactly what they are going to contribute or not, if they understand what it entails. She explains that a no-fly zone is not actually enough. You need to do more. The Arab League has just called for a no-fly zone, so they are on board, and that kind of moves the needle on the decision-making for the United States. And then crucially, she meets with the Libyan opposition leader to kind of size up, who is this man? What can he bring? What will he deliver? Who are we doing business with? And it's when she gathers all those elements that she makes the call and decides that it's time to tip the balance in favor of intervention. And that's very often how she operates, as far as I can tell, in conversations with the president. She gathers everything she needs to make her case, and then she does it by making that case to the president and, in essence, almost leading him to the natural conclusion of what is the next step to take.
But I think within this scene, we see, as the famous official told Ryan Lizzer of The New Yorker, this is leading from behind. Traditionally, you would imagine America would make a decision. This is in America's national interest. We are going to gather a coalition, and we're going to compel people or argue people to join us. But if they don't join us, we think this is in our interest. We're going to do it. But what we see, I think, through your example, is that she is first trying to make sure people are going to do something. And if they're going to do something, then we'll consider doing it. She's not saying that this is what we need to do, this is in America's national interest. She's first waiting for other people to commit to the United States for doing it. And I see this as, in a real way, a very different way than we've seen in past administrations in America acting.
It's actually not that different from the coalition put together by Bush Sr. For the first Gulf War. That was also a collaborative effort. The United States was leading, perhaps more openly and vocally, but it certainly wanted to make sure that everybody was on board, and it wanted a broad coalition. And what Hillary Clinton and President Obama do with Libya is say, well, it's not really in our national interest at this stage to get involved in this, but it matters to our European partners, and the Arab world is asking us to help in a way that sounds as though they are willing to put their money where their mouth is, because she also talks to the Emiratis and the Qataris and ascertains that they will participate militarily, because that's often the danger. The United States leads the charge, the Arabs don't participate militarily, and then they criticize the US for getting into a war in another Muslim country. So it was about making sure that the perception of what was happening was accurate. Do you want to call it leading from behind? It's certainly not leading from the front, but I'm not sure that it's the right characterization. I think it's a more collaborative approach to how you exercise American leadership and how you bring people on board.
But the U.S. would not have... Do you think the United States would have gone into Libya had France and the Arab League not, been pushing for it and promising to...
Possibly not. Yeah. Possibly not. Because the French were absolutely adamant that they wanted to go ahead with this. And I think that was part of the one of the factors that shaped the conversation when people were debating this within the administration. Clinton tells the president, look, the French are going ahead with this, with us or without us. And we may just as well get in there and shape this to look like something that we can work with. There's no point having just a no-fly zone if we're going to be doing a no-fly zone for 10 years. What's the point? You need to actually have a result. And that's where the discussion comes in about including the words, all necessary measures to protect civilians. That's the final resolution that gets voted on at the UN. As we are flying back from the region back to the US on that trip that we were discussing, we went to Paris, Egypt, and then Tunis, and it's in the course of those 4 days that decision is made. So the conversation was very much, the French are going to go ahead. We can let them do whatever they want, or we can actually try to shape this into something that is going to deliver for people.
I think my favorite chapter in the book is the trip to Burma, perhaps because it might be the most, I think, historical.
Yes. I love that chapter.
Trip. And just talk about what made that trip so unique. Obviously, not very many people are traveling to Burma, at least from the United States at that time.
More and more, but certainly at the time it was very, very, very novel. It was a very special moment, and it goes back to when you look at the big picture of what my book will do for readers. This is a book that is several things. It is my personal story, my perspective on American power. It is the story of Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State and her approach to the exercise of American leadership and the concept of smart power, which we can talk about later. How do you do business as a global leader in a challenging world? But it's also a portrait of the woman. This historic figure in the United States, politician, like her or whether you like her or whether you don't like her, she has a global stature. She is a celebrity. She is a big personality, and she's been in the public eye for several decades. But I think that readers will discover things about her that they didn't know and see her in a different light. And I think that chapter in Burma achieves part of that as well, where you see her as a woman who's meeting another historic figure, Aung San Suu Kyi, the Nobel Peace Laureate, two amazing women, both for very different reasons, who come face to face, who have never met before. And it's quite emotional and very historic because of who these two women are. And in a way, again, whatever you think of Hillary Clinton, I think everybody can agree on the fact that she, is a global figure with an important stature on the global stage. She probably rarely meets women or people in general who are some extent on that